It's nighttime, and you're hungry. You're an econ in the game of Vampyr. Do you snack on a citizen or eat a rat? I did both. First, my character, Dr. Reid, treated London like an all-you-can-eat buffet. Then I started over and refused to eat anyone. The world changed. The people changed. Even the game itself changed. But Jonathan's story, it was pretty much the same. Because whether Dr. Reid is a compassionate physician or an absolute blood-soaked menace, Vampyr still expects him to cure the plague and fall in love with Lady Ashbury. Which made me ask the question, does Vampyr actually respect your choices? Does Dr. Reid's story change to reflect the vampire you choose to become? Not in the ways that define him. The story can reasonably send both versions of Dr. Reid after the plague. A compassionate Reid wants to save London. An evil Reid needs the epidemic contained because it's attracting vampire hunters and destabilizing his feeding ground. Same goal, different motivation, that works. The real storytelling failure is that Vampyr barely changes that motivation. Dr. Reid continues speaking and behaving like the same compassionate doctor, even after you've turned him into London's most efficient serial killer. The player can fundamentally rewrite his morality, but the script refuses to rewrite his character. Lady Ashbury is the clearest proof. If you spare London's citizens, their romance leads to a happy ending. But if you devour half the city, even killing Lady Ashbury's own daughter, Ashbury still falls in love with you. She may not know what happened to Charlotte yet, but eventually she would. And on my evil playthrough, I spoke to Lady Ashbury only 3 times. 3 times! How do you fall in love that quickly? Plus, evil Dr. Reid is everything Ashbury and William Marshall have spent centuries resisting. She should reject him. She should recognize him as another monster who needs to be stopped. Instead, the romance remains mandatory until the ending converts it into tragedy. She kills William and then herself, when the far more logical conclusion would have been a confrontation with Dr. Reid. I was honestly expecting a battle. Instead, the story protects its predetermined romance, even when the romance no longer makes sense. I chose what Dr. Reid did, but Vampyr already chose who he was. Does Dr. Reid look like the vampire you choose to become? Oh, absolutely. A compassionate Dr. Reid remains recognizably human. His complexion becomes a bit pale, and his eyes look slightly unnatural, but he can still pass as an exhausted doctor wandering around London at night, which is completely believable. He's fighting a plague, after all. Evil Dr. Reid looks horrifying. His eyes are blood red. Red veins spread across his face. His skin looks sickly and corrupted. You don't need a morality meter to tell you what he has become. The visual design makes it perfectly clear that this man is evil. Which raises another important question. How does Lady Ashbury not see that? The romance might already be difficult to believe after only 3 conversations, but evil Dr. Reid arrives looking like he hasn't slept in 6 months and recently ate everyone in Whitechapel. Yet, Ashbury never seems troubled by the enormous visual evidence that the compassionate doctor she supposedly loves has become exactly the kind of vampire she has spent centuries resisting. A few characters do comment on Dr. Reid's changing appearance, but they don't recoil from him. They don't run, because if the people around him reacted believably, they would have to recognize that Dr. Reid just might be the villain, and Vampyr's central story doesn't allow him to be the villain. Visually, the game respects your choices. It transforms Dr. Reid into the creature you chose to create. But the characters are still required to look at that creature and see the compassionate doctor the script needs him to be. Does London change to reflect the vampire you choose to become? Absolutely. Unlike the main story, London genuinely responds to your choices. If you're compassionate, keeping the districts healthy becomes another part of Dr. Reid's medical practice. Citizens develop illnesses, lowering the overall health of their district unless you diagnose them, gather ingredients, craft medicine, track them down, and personally deliver it. Unfortunately, this means the compassionate path includes several thrilling hours of curing headaches and fatigue. Evil Dr. Reid has a very different London. When you slaughter named citizens, their districts fall into disrepair. Eventually, they become hostile, and the streets fill with waves of monsters, each uglier than the last bunch. The people you killed leave holes behind. Their relationships disappear, their stories end, and the neighborhoods they belong to become substantially more dangerous. So the world absolutely recognizes what kind of vampire you've become. Compassion creates more people to protect, and considerably more errands. Evil gives you power, but it also creates a London overrun by the consequences of your appetite. This is where Vampyr's choices work best. The game doesn't merely tell you that the districts are collapsing, it changes what it feels like to walk through them. London knows when Dr. Reid is the villain. It's only the main story that refuses to admit it. Does Dr. Reid sound like the vampire you choose to become? Not really. The atmosphere surrounding him certainly changes. Once a district becomes hostile, the streets are filled with considerably more screaming, growling, and combat, but Dr. Reid himself still sounds much the same. Even after slaughtering every named citizen in London, he continues speaking with the same calm concern and professional compassion. Evil Dr. Reid doesn't become colder, crueler, or even particularly threatening. So while visually he looks like a monster, he sounds like a dedicated professional who is eager to help. He performs the role of the compassionate doctor because that is the character the story wrote. So the audio reinforces the consequences surrounding your choices, but not the change that should be happening within Dr. Reid himself. Did Vampyre's choices make the game more enjoyable? Yes. Even when I discovered they didn't matter, I was honestly disappointed by the final 2 chapters. I wanted a dramatically dark and dangerous version of London, one shaped by my evil ways. On my compassionate playthrough, protecting London meant spending several hours curing headaches and delivering medicine. On my evil playthrough, I devoured most of the available content, only to discover that much of that content consisted of fairly boring errands anyway. The citizens simply weren't interesting enough to make me regret eating them. But here's the kicker. I still had fun playing Vampyr. I had a lot of fun devouring London. I enjoyed watching the districts collapse because horrifyingly powerful and going completely whole hog, even when the central story refused to acknowledge what I had become, was incredibly fun. That's why I'm giving Vampyr a fascinating 3 out of 5 stars. It's a good game. It gave me choices that were fun to make and consequences I could see throughout London. But it ultimately disappointed me because it didn't respect my player agency where it mattered most. So if you're hungry, you might as well eat everyone, unless you want a happily ever after with Lady Ashbury.
I am Dr. Jonathan Reid, champion of Murden, chosen to save England from the vampire epidemic. I could cure you.
What do you mean?
We are creatures of blood, Elizabeth. Everything about us is in our blood. With time, I could perfect the antidote William Marshall gave you. Trust me, for time is on our side.